Welcome to this course on creating a great go-to-market strategy. My name is Alex Kanadinik and I'll be your instructor. Welcome. Well, my experience in creating go-to-market strategies is that I've been in online marketing for 15 plus years. A large part of that having worked as a business consultant and a business coach, creating go-to-market strategies for many different companies in many different markets, including launching my own physical products, digital products, courses, apps, etc. So I have quite an extensive background in creating such strategies, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. In this course, the way it's organized and laid out, at first we're going to go through a little bit of the theory and what you need to know in how to create a go-to-market strategy that's a winning strategy. Then we're going to create a go-to-market actual plan together. Then we're going to go over a go-to-market calendar, all the things you do before going to market. And then I'm going to give you some strategies that work for different businesses so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's going to be the course. The course is designed to be relatively quick and painless to take, fun to take, and so that you can begin implementing the strategies that I'm going to share with you in your business the same day or the same week. So welcome, and let's begin. Now I want to introduce our class project. We're going to be creating a go-to-market strategy for this toy drone. It's a low-end market drone designed to be your first drone, so you can break it or lose it or crash it. It won't matter. It's just a basic drone that I actually bought to play with my daughter. So I don't have any particular interest in drones. I just needed something that if it gets totally lost or my daughter hates it, it's not a big deal. So it's a bottom of the market in terms of pricing, but I chose it for this course because it's highly visual. It's easy to understand what the product is. It's kind of fun, and it's very applicable to many people's situations. If you're selling a physical good or a digital good, any kind of commerce, the strategies we're going to go through in this course are going to be very applicable. If you are planning to launch an app or a software or a B2B product, still many of the strategies that we're going to talk about in this course are also applicable. You just have to basically swap out some things that are related to products to things that are related to your specific situation. But generally speaking, I did my best to make this course universally applicable. And again, it's a fun product, very easy visual to understand, so that we can all be on the same page and understand exactly what the product is, so that the examples are, once you truly understand them, you'll be able to use the examples for whatever other situation. So you don't have to rely on fill in the blank template and then, oh no, what if one part of the template is not applicable to your situation? That's if you don't understand the situation, you need specific fill in the blanks. But once you understand exactly what we're doing, you'll be able to reason and think about how various parts of this course apply to your situation. And again, I did my best to think ahead for all the students for how to make it applicable to all cases. Now I want to share some of the main benefits of having a go-to-market strategy versus just randomly waiting until the product is ready and then launching it. Well, you see, when you have a go-to-market strategy, you also have a go-to-market calendar and a plan. So everything is planned, organized, and gets done. Because when you are random in your approach, without a plan, without a strategy, then you're kind of like a puppy, right? Somebody says this is important, somebody else says this is important, you do a little bit of each, you haven't prioritized that many things, you haven't figured out how to allocate your budget, and the results are much less impressive, as opposed to when you have a plan. Well, you know what your goals are, you make a plan for how to get to those goals, you outline the strategies, the priorities, the calendar. And by the way, when you have a calendar and deadlines, your team, whether it's just you or a large team, everyone has roles, everybody has deadlines and sub-deadlines, because there may be dependencies, like you need design to be complete for the entire product, maybe to be promoted, or for your branding images to be, artwork to be complete before you can start making videos that are going to go out during the launch. So there's contingencies, and so within a calendar, within a large deadline for when you launch the product, there are sub deadlines. And what deadlines do is they add a little bit of stress, good stress, not the damaging long-term stress, but the good kind of stress that you feel when you have a near-term deadline. What happens? You're galvanized, energized, you're focused. That's what the healthy kind of stress does, and that's what everyone on your team is going to get. And so they're going to work better, more efficiently, more focused. There's going to be focus within each individual and the greater team working together to complete something. And these are all the benefits that you're going to get, which are all going to translate into when the launch date comes, you'll get much, much, much more from your launch date. And we're going to talk about that because very often there are strategies for what you want to achieve on your launch date. Let's say you launch something on YouTube or on Amazon. Well, there's an algorithm that you want to influence, and usually the amount of engagement influences. So for example, if you launch a product on Amazon and it gets like 1,000 sales on day one, it's going to shoot up all the rankings on Amazon SEO. Amazon recommendation algorithm is going to start promoting it. The category rankings, bestseller rankings, and suddenly your product is going to be visible on Amazon in a tremendous way. Whereas if you just did a random soft launch that wasn't successful, that wouldn't be the case. It's not to say that long term you couldn't get there, but what a big boom, a big launch does for you is that it gives you that possibility on day one. And it's a very widely used strategy because if you have an app, a podcast you're launching, a product, anything on any marketplace, well, those marketplaces work in those very kind of similar ways where as long as you have a big boom of sales, of engagement in the beginning, that's going to tremendously impact the algorithm in your favor. So there's a lot you can, the big boom is what you get from your go-to-market strategies that you're pre-planning. But then once the website starts promoting you, that's free secondary marketing that's going to hopefully stay long-term, because that big spike, big boom, usually on launch, there's a spike in traffic naturally because you do all the promotion, and then on day 2 it kind of goes down, day 3 it kind of goes down, and then it kind of goes back down, right? Because you've stopped that boom. And so what we're after here is, how do you continue? How do you not have it totally go down almost to zero, but continue and do well long term? That's the value of a tremendous launch, not to mention branding and awareness, so that your customers can also begin using and recommending your product, giving you secondary and tertiary marketing waves. That's what we're after here. These are all the things you get with a tremendous go-to-market strategy that you don't get otherwise. So now that you know just how much it can benefit your business or your product, hopefully now that motivates you to create a great go-to-marketing strategy so that you can get all these benefits for you. Now I want to very quickly explain the difference between a marketing plan and a go-to-market strategy. A go-to-market strategy is a part of your marketing plan. The go-to-market strategy is basically your strategy and calendar for what you will do in the 3 to 2 to 1 month before launch. Different companies have longer or shorter go-to-market strategies. If you're launching something grand and gigantic, you might even have a 6-month go-to-market strategy, which may be a little long. But if you have something very basic, you might have a 1 day or a 1 week go-to-market strategy, which is a little too short. So if you have a regular kind of a product that maybe your engineering team has worked on for the last 3 to 6 months, well, the last 3 months of the engineering team's work, you can actually coordinate it with your marketing team so that the marketing team starts working 2 or 3 months in advance, so that when the product is ready, the marketing is all prepared and beautiful. And that's all a part of your overall greater marketing plan, because a marketing plan is your long-term strategy for how you will succeed with your product or service. So the marketing plan has in it the launch strategy, the go-to-market strategy, and then what you will do in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, short-term strategies, long-term strategies. So it has the launch, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. See, so that's the difference of go-to-market strategy and marketing plan. I know these two can be very confusing. In this course, we're just talking about the go-to-market strategy, but I just didn't want you to get confused with the terminology that you might come across. Now I want to begin putting our go-to-market plan together with you so that we can have everything organized in a document. Now, the very first thing you want to think about are your goals, because without goals, it's impossible to strategize. And the goals will generally come from your management team. You may be the management team, you may be the marketing manager, brainstorming with the management team. But generally speaking, the leadership of the company generally decides on the goals. Sometimes the goals are reasonable, sometimes they're not reasonable. And this is where the person in charge of the marketing strategies and the marketing department has to have that honest conversation with the leadership team to see what's feasible. And during that conversation, you also come up with KPI, key performance indicators. Key performance indicators can be things like how many downloads you might get if it's a mobile app. If it's a product, how many sales did you get? Or if it's a new email newsletter, well, how many email subscribers did you get? Something measurable and attainable. Because once you launch, a big part of how your launch will be judged is whether your launch will achieve these metrics, these key performance indicators. And generally speaking, key performance indicators aren't just hard numbers. They may be engagement metrics, like how much engagement did you get from these apps? Like, let's say you made a mobile app, how much engagement did you get? Or let's say you made a product, well, what are the reviews like? In our case, we aren't as much concerned with the engagement. We still are, but less, because engagement is how the product is built. That's the product team. But the go-to-market strategy is largely handled by the marketing team, except for when you have pre-launches. Very often you'll get feedback from the early consumers, and they'll tell you, oh, the product isn't good in this way or that way, and you quickly go back to the product team and they change how the product is made, fix the bugs. And so your marketing team does impact your ultimate product quality and engagement, but just not in a very direct way. So in our case, we will be slightly more concerned with hitting the hard metrics, whatever the goals are that are set by the leadership team. And obviously here are some very basic examples of goals that you can use, and just change these to whatever fits your situation. So you don't have to write them in a particularly sophisticated way. What has to be sophisticated is how you come up with these numbers. And so the question will become, well, how do you come up with the goals? Usually, the metrics for your goals come from either something that your business needs, like maybe you need to launch well and get a certain number of customers so you can stay profitable. Or if you're a startup, for example, you might need 10,000 app downloads so you can go and raise the next round of funding and show, hey, we're getting downloads. So again, it comes from some milestone that has to be reached that sets the stage for the next step in your company. Or let's say if you're launching on Amazon, you might be aware that in your niche, you need 500 sales to become a bestseller in that day. And then you climb all sorts of rankings for that day and get additional sales from Amazon and have longevity on Amazon, for example. Then you know that's the metric. Sometimes it's very clear, sometimes it's less clear, but this is the conversation that has to be had by the leadership team and passed on to the marketing team so that you have your goals. And once you have your goals, you can create the rest of the strategy in a way that would have a great chance to achieve such goals and hopefully even overachieve on them. So now I want to show you how to approximate or calculate a good goal for your launch. And in this case, we're going to use the drone example and we're going to use Amazon. So on Amazon, you have things like product rank, category rank, etc. So let's say I searched for a cheap drone. I'm going to get all kinds of results and I'm going to find any old drone. I think this is the one that I actually bought. So I'm going to click here. When you scroll down all the way to this area, you see it has a bestsellers rank, and it's around 12,000 in toys and games, which is a very competitive niche. Obviously, it's like all the toys and all the games. And it has more of a niche here, like number 60 in hobby RC quadcopters. Number 60 is pretty good. You can also click on the number 1. This is actually probably the drone that I bought. Yeah, it says here, last purchase. And basically you can come here and see what will it take, right? So you basically see, okay, it's number 1 in this category. And it's actually number 215 in overall toys and games, which is pretty good. So you want to know, like, how many sales does that mean? Like that rank, right? So there are rank calculators. So bestseller calculator. Let's look at that. You can search for in Google, just like this, bestseller rank calculator, and a bunch of different websites will give you their estimators. And so you would choose, for example, United States, category, like let's say toys and games, and then enter rank 215. And then you estimate sales. So that's 10,000 sales per month, essentially. That's really a tremendous amount because this is kind of a niche product. And so you might be compelled to set that as your sales goal, 10,000 items. That's a really difficult goal. So what you might do is try to look for an easier category, like a subcategory. But I don't want to dive too deeply into that because you may not have a product on Amazon. This is just an example. But you see, there are various tools to approximate this. And by the way, this is a free tool. There are various paid tools that are even better at this, like Helium 10. It's a paid tool. It's a market standard tool. You see the pricing here is not crazy expensive, but it's not free. You can have the starter package for $30 a month, do all sorts of research on products. That's if you're on Amazon. But if you're not on Amazon, if you plan to sell elsewhere, there are similar tools for every niche and every marketplace, including YouTube and including search engine optimization. Search engine optimization means that you kind of gauging demand by consumers. So you would go to ads.google.com and make an account here. You wouldn't run ads, but a part of this tool, they give you keyword tools for free that you can use that give you estimates for demand for certain topics. So you can essentially approximate what your goals should be that you should set. And your goal may not be to sell 10,000 like in this example, because it's quite a difficult and lofty goal, but you should see, well, what's reasonable for us? But at least you'll have some market data to work from. And again, wherever you plan to sell, there are quite accessible ways to find such data. And so in our go-to-market plan, we would erase these examples that I wrote, and we would say something like 500 sales in the first week after launch, 100 sales on day 1, and maybe 1,000 sales in the first month. So these are our goals. You can also make a goal of consistency of the sales, if that's one of your requirements that comes from leadership. So like at least 15 every day. And now that we have such goals, it's much easier to create such a strategy because we know exactly what the target is. Before this, we had very little clue. It was random. Are we going to get 1 or are we going to get 100 or 1,000? We didn't know. So you don't want randomness. You want solid planning. And now that we have our goals, in the next videos, we can create an entire strategy to fulfill such goals. So now that we have our go-to-market goals, one of the very next things you want to look into is the brand purpose. And that's actually what we're going to do in this video. In past decades, you may not have needed a brand purpose, but today, both your employees and your customers want brands to actually have a purpose. Like if you're a food company, they want you to take steps towards being healthy and organic and actually good for people. If you're a car company, many consumers want you to be mindful of energy and energy saving and things like that. If your consumers can get behind your brand purpose, that's going to help you close sales. It's going to help you get loyalty from those customers and many other benefits. Not to mention that your employees will also see that, and they'll be energized if the purpose is great and if it aligns with their own values. And also, of course, from the purpose, very, very importantly, you're going to write all your brand messaging, all your sales copy, because it will all have to be consistent. So let's actually write the brand purpose together. So here are a couple of examples of a brand purpose. The first one is Udemy's example. The purpose of Udemy. Udemy would say something like, we want to improve people's quality of life by making education more accessible to anyone in the world. That's an amazing brand purpose. Who wouldn't want to get behind that? It's non-controversial and it's very, very kind and good. Now, let's look at an example of our drone. This is that class project we're working on. Because it's an affordable drone, we might want to align our brand purpose and vision with that. So we might say something like, we want to make drones accessible to everyone so people can find a passion in this technology. So if you're a drone enthusiast working in this company, that would be a fun purpose for you because you love drones and so you want other people to love drones. So employees can get behind such a purpose, and potential customers, if they've been really curious about drones but haven't been able to afford them, then of course they might appreciate that you want to make drones accessible for everyone so that they can find a passion in this technology, because a lot of people are curious. Very often curiosity is a step right before passion, so this may resonate with many people. So these kinds of purposes can really attract potential customers and get a lot of them to become champions of your brand. But let's say you're not working for Udemy or drones. Here are some examples you can use for whatever you have. And as you'll see, I made them pretty universal, so they're useful for just about any kind of business, at least one of them. And if none of these are useful for your business, just try to see the patterns of how I structure things so that you can apply the patterns and structures of how I phrase things to your situation. So let's look at the first one. We want to make anything X, whatever. We want to make something more accessible, or we want to make something healthier, or we want to make something more efficient, or we want to make something more affordable, or we want to make something more fair. You see, we want to make something more something. Or a different structure to this might be, we want to help person X by doing Y for them. So you see, it's not rocket science, but you need a genuine purpose, because if your purpose isn't genuine, it's going to make your brand look ridiculous, like you're trying too hard, but you're fake. So you definitely don't want to do that. Be genuine in how you position your brand purpose and how you express your brand purpose, and all of your marketing and messaging will actually stem largely from that. Not entirely, but largely. So you need a brand purpose before you create those sections. So that's your brand purpose. And in the next video, we'll continue to write out your go-to-market strategy. Now, the next things that I want to kind of couple together are the launch date and your brand messaging, just because the launch date is such a short section. The launch date is basically chosen by the leadership team, the management team, and it should be approximately 2 to 3 months in advance from where you're starting to create your go-to-market strategy. Pretty straightforward. Now, the brand messaging, this is how you're going to talk about your brand and describe it. So you might say something is the best first drone on the market, which is a little confusing. It's not the first drone ever. It's the best first drone that you own, or best drone for a first-time drone owner. That sounds a little better. It's more clear. So affordable drone that's easy to fly in calm or windy conditions with long battery life and rechargeable batteries. One problem with all of these is that they're very kind of like features. And of course, in messaging and copywriting, you want to focus on benefits, not features. So what you can also say something is like fun for the whole family, because you can kind of picture a whole family having fun. It's a benefit that people want. It's something people really desire to have. It's not a boring feature. But something that may be even cooler could be the coolest parent ever and wow your child with a drone. Fun for the whole family. So this can be a part of your sales messaging, right? Because which parent doesn't want to be the coolest parent ever? I do. And this might really resonate because you see, the drone may not be the first thing a person who aspires to be the coolest parent ever, that's not the first thing they might buy. Like they might buy a toy helicopter, which is something that I actually did. And toy helicopters can be really hit or miss. They can fly really poorly and they can be hard to control, which is why you see I have this messaging here: affordable drone that's easy to fly in calm or windy conditions. So a lot of the toy helicopters, they can't even really fly outside very well because like even a tiny gust of wind will just make them crash. These are kind of cheap toys, right? So as one of those parents who's actually gone through the cheap helicopters, this would sound really amazing, right? So it's not just something I kind of randomly came up with. This is actually brand messaging for a potential buyer who is me, because I am the potential target market for this product, you see. Because relatively soon, what you'll end up doing is writing a customer avatar. This is basically like a description of the consumer. Once you know the consumer and their experiences, what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like, you're better able to write more of the brand messaging and more of the sales copy. So with all of this, we're kind of building up to the customer avatar. But in any case, I don't want to make this particular video too long because these sections aren't too crucial. The brand messaging is important, but we certainly want to move on to the strategies that we're going to implement during our launch. So in the next video, let's actually look at the strategies we're going to use. So now that we have our purpose and brand messaging and deadline, we're getting to the most important and perhaps fun part of the whole planning of your go-to-market strategy, which are the actual marketing strategies that you'll use. And so our specific product is the drone. And what do we know about the drone? It's a physical good. We make one, we sell one, we make one, we sell one, we provide support. That's pretty much it in terms of marketing. And perhaps we do some branding. So with that in mind, I outlined some of the marketing channels that may be most effective. So let's go through them. Obviously, when people search for something like cheap drone, if we rank for that keyword in Google search, that would be extremely lucrative because many people search for that and kind of similar terms. So of course we want to rank in Google search because when people search, they are really close to buying because they're already looking for something they want to buy. So we want to appear in those searches. After that, of course, the biggest store in the world is Amazon, and it would be prudent to be able to sell there. So we're going to want to target people searching Amazon, and we're going to run Amazon ads. So as you can see, these are first priority because the potential for these can be so high. The next is influencer marketing, where we maybe hire bloggers who talk about drones or hire bloggers who talk about even, cool parenting hacks, because obviously we identified this kind of a buyer, the parent. And of course, just like we're looking to pay influencers to promote us, the next option, publicity and public relations, this is where you become a guest on podcasts, radio shows, blogs, etc., and actually talk about your product as though you are the influencer, but you're invited to these shows because of the merit of your work. And of course, a lot of these shows have a large audience, so that's part of your branding and building awareness, but it can also lead to sales. And just because the next set of items is numbered, let me make these numbered as well. So ideally, you would order them in terms of priority. So we have kind of this high level priority, but even within a priority topic, we've prioritized different things. So for priority 2, we have different ads: Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube. This is YouTube organic. We can also run YouTube ads. When I say organic, I mean us making videos and ranking in YouTube search and maybe YouTube recommendations, etc. And of course, doing all kinds of social media, free Facebook strategies, free TikTok marketing, Instagram. We can also run ads, etc. But these start to be second priority. Now, you might ask, why did you prioritize some things lower than others and higher than others? Well, I took the search paradigms where if we just rank highly, we're going to get discovered by many customers, which were Google SEO and Amazon SEO. And I highly prioritize those because those are, once you start ranking, you're kind of on cruise control. It's totally passive. And you can then devote your time to other things. And then Amazon ads, I prioritize because, again, people are shopping on Amazon, so they're looking to buy. I could put Google ads priority 1 because, again, people are shopping. So that's borderline priority 1. I could have done that. Now, on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, people are kind of just browsing. Those aren't shopping paradigms. Those aren't shopping networks. Sure, you can inspire some shopping from there, but most people aren't looking to buy. So priority 1 is kind of trying to get either branding, like with items 4 and 5, or direct sales. That's why I prioritize direct sales. But what I want to draw your attention to is once you have these strategies that you carefully handpicked because you know they are the most ideal for your kind of product or situation, you can start to create a budget. So in the next video, let's actually look at all these together, the strategies and the budget, so that we can see which strategies can get us to our goal and what kind of a budget will accomplish that. So everything will sort of come together in our plan. And once it comes together, we'll be able to start actually planning out by which dates we'll start doing which tasks. So let's look at the budget in the next video. Now let's begin exploring how to set the budget in your go-to-marketing strategy. You see the budget goes towards ad spending, employee salary, equipment costs, or outsourcing costs. Now for equipment costs, you may need all sorts of audio and video equipment and maybe a small space to actually record things. So let's say $3,000. For ad spending, you're going to separate that into different ads. Like here, I just basically listed the 5 major ad platforms. Notice that Instagram ads wasn't really a part of our marketing strategies, but it might get shuffled in and out. It's like a low priority one. But generally speaking, the Amazon and Google ads will be higher priority. So let's do that. Put them on top. And you see for each of these ads, if you don't have experience with them, or if you have experience with them, but just not in this niche, it's really hard to guess or estimate how much money it will take to make one sale. But on average, let's say if it might take you $30 of Amazon ads to make a sale of one product, and you need, let's say, 500 sales from Amazon ads because Amazon will be like one of the most important places, well, then, it's going to be 500 times $30 per sale. Okay. So there you go, $15,000. And you might have similar metrics on these other platforms. You probably wouldn't have identical ad spend and ad costs, but just for our example, let's say it's going to be identical. So we're going to put together something like 100 sales from Google, which means that it's going to be $3,000, and maybe 50 sales each from Facebook and Instagram. So that's going to be 1,500 from each. And let's say the same thing from TikTok. Now for outsourcing costs, let's say you're going to outsource design and branding because there isn't enough work in this project for a full-time person. So let's say you'll spend $1,000 for outsourcing. And let's say you'll have a staff of 4 members, which is kind of a mid-size marketing team. Each person, let's say, earns $5,000 a month, which means that it's a $20,000 a month spend. And we're going to do this for 2 months. So $40,000 in salaries. Now, one caveat about the salaries. Some companies count the salaries. Some companies don't really count the salaries. It's optional in this budget. So the total without counting salaries is $26,500. And if we come up short in our sales from the ads, which we're estimating to come up short from all these ads, then whatever sales we don't get to our 1,000 in the first month sold, we're going to have to get those in the organic strategies, meaning like ranking in Google search, promoting on social media, making YouTube videos, etc. But those strategies would be mostly organic, worked on by the staff that we have, that we pay the salary to. And this staff is going to be responsible for the running of the ads and the free strategies. But the free strategies are free, so they don't quite add to our budget. So that's the budget. And you would have to have your management team agree to this budget, discuss all the needs with the marketing management team, and they'll approve or disapprove. Let's say they approve, then you'll be ready to begin working on your calendar, the 2 months calendar before your launch date, so that you can get all of these strategies that you have working in place, including your branding, etc. So that on launch, you have a tremendous launch. And so in the next videos, let's begin looking into how your actual schedule and your calendar might look like and what tasks you'll start working on when. With this video, let's begin exploring our go-to-market calendar. And let me explain to you what I'm showing you on the screen. I made a makeshift calendar for you. You wouldn't use a Google Calendar for this because that's for scheduling. Here, we are noting tasks and assigning tasks. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But essentially, we have on the leftmost column the dates. So this is the week ending, for example, the 4th of August. The next week is the 11th of August. The next week is 18th of August, then 25th of August, then the 1st of September, and all the way through the end of September, which means it's a 2-month calendar. And you see across the top, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we're going to not have too many things on Saturday, Sunday. We're going to assume people aren't working then. Of course, you're welcome to work then, but let's just assume a workday Monday through Friday. So now that you understand what I'm showing you, and again, this is visually not very beautiful, I admit, but it's practical and we can use this. Of course, you don't have to use this. You can use any other software for this, but it's just easy. And this is accessible to everyone because this is Google Sheets. It's universally accessible for free with Google. So let's look at the first day. You see on Monday here, when I expand this, and we're going to assume we have a 4-person team, like we have Joe, Susie, Max, and Sam. And you see I assigned various tasks to different people. Work on brand messaging for Joe. We need to finish this early so that we can turn the brand messaging into product titles and product descriptions on our landing pages. Then, of course, the first day, Susie buys equipment, Max starts hiring design freelancers, and Sam starts working on SEO for our website. Those are sort of the first priority things that we need to lay out. And then on the next day, we would maybe come together and create a strategy, like create an SEO content strategy, like what blog posts to write each day, etc. Same with YouTube strategy, same with social media strategy, and same with what videos we're going to be making. Okay, so we're just strategizing on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, perhaps the audio and video recording equipment has come, so the team is going to start recording videos for social media. And notice we're making a little progress each day. And even though on the first day I assign tasks and on the other days I don't assign tasks, in your case, you would assign tasks to people. So let's say you're the marketing manager for this, you would assign tasks. That's why we're doing it this way, so that everybody can have a day and a task, and we would know by when to finish each task. This is called time boxing, and this entire type of scheduling where we might break things down into 2-week sprints is called agile marketing. It's a very modern way of doing time management and project management because it's very focused. Everybody has accountability, short deadlines, and the short deadlines get everybody energized and working together. And there are many other benefits to working this way. It's a pretty standard approach today. And so, as you see, on Thursday, we're just creating videos, creating product descriptions for Amazon and our website so that that's ready whenever our product is ready. And then Friday, we're just going to continue working in videos. In your case, it would be a little more specific about who's working on which videos because that's going to help your employees, these 4 people. Joey, Susie, Max, and Sam know exactly what they need to accomplish each day. So in your case, you'd add a lot more detail. It's just that if I added a lot more detail and went over it, this video would just balloon to too long and too boring, and that would just make it very confusing. But in your case, keep in mind, make it detailed so that everybody understands what they're doing each day and what their deadline is each day. Now, let's look at week 2. Here, we're going to begin outreach to various bloggers. These are influencers, to see if they can help to promote us on launch day. We're going to also continue filming various videos and continue writing SEO articles. And again, you might assign the SEO articles to one person, filming videos to another person, and the outreach to another person. So your whole team is working. And the rest of the week is kind of similar. except Tuesday you begin outreach to podcasters in addition to bloggers. So you might split. The same person does blogger outreach Monday, the same person does podcaster outreach Tuesday. Now Wednesday, Thursday, let's say Friday, I don't have anything listed for Friday. We just continue to do the same things like creating video content and doing outreach. And you got to do a lot of outreach because most people will reject you, but some people will say yes, and you just basically have to outreach. And then once somebody replies and they're open to it, then there's a lot of communication of like, are we going to pay for this? How are we going to collaborate, etc. So it's a little bit time consuming, and there's a high rejection rate. So this completes our calendar for the first 2 weeks. And in the next video, let's quickly go through the rest of our calendar, which is the next 6 weeks, so that you can see what's going to happen approximately each day and each week leading up to the product launch. Now let's continue with our go-to-market calendar and start with week 3. Since in the first 2 weeks, you see we're doing outreach and content creation, that's our sprint, the next 2 weeks we'll launch stuff. So on the third week, you see we're launching our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube channel, and we're going to post content daily there. You might have already had accounts there, but now you're going to launch there in earnest, where you're actually going to focus on it fully. And so now each day you're also posting content there, and you're continuing blogging and podcaster, influencer outreach as you see. And maybe on a Wednesday you start influencer outreach on YouTube as well. And here, as we're getting into Thursday and Friday, you see we want to start getting feedback on our initial social media posts we made, so that when we come back the next week on a Monday, we can brainstorm how to improve the content, make it more engaging. Then we're going to create on the Tuesday, the very day after, we're going to create new content with some improvements, and then we're going to release this new video, let's say on Wednesday with the improvements. On Thursday, we're getting feedback. So we're doing this kind of very iterative, fast improvement of our videos that we're going to make, because we're really taking this time to become very good at making viral, engaging videos that rank highly on social media, get shared, promoted, and actually get a lot of engagement. So we're not just posting and nobody's really looking at them. See, because if you had launched on day one and you started your go-to-marketing strategy on day one when you launched, well, you'd have very little engagement on your social media channels generally. And so, of course, you would get crickets. That's where you hear a lot of people complaining, I launched and crickets. But what we're doing here is we're actually preventing that kind of a launch with crickets, because we're posting a lot, first of all, daily. When you post daily, all these social media platforms, their algorithms start to notice creators who post rapidly. And secondly, it won't just be rapidly, but we're going to quickly work on improving what we post. And that's the way to find quick growth on such social media channels ranging from Instagram to YouTube in many cases. Not always, but often, just depending on your quality of execution. And so that's exactly what we're doing in this second sprint, which is the second 2-week part of our go-to-market calendar. The first sprint was more about starting outreach, starting to record stuff. The second sprint is more about launching what we're recording and the content we're creating and getting feedback and improving. Now, the next sprint might be about, once I go to September 1st, 09, that's the month September, 01 is September 1st. When I click on this, you'll see, of course, we'll do more influencer outreach, but we're doing a soft product launch. So we're coordinating with the product team to do a soft launch. This is not the big launch where we get all the attention. We're just quietly launching on Amazon, on our website, etc. Of course, the product will have some bugs because the product team is working on it, but the marketing team can also begin working on the product launch, because once you have sales pages, because the product has been launched, you're getting sales pages, you can start to set up ads and begin experimenting with ads. And ads require a lot of experimentation, because a lot of times you post the ads, they don't work, change the ads, they don't work, change the ads again, they don't work. And you need a lot of iterations to get the ads to work. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this third sprint. A lot of continuing of experimenting with ads, because again, what happens if you launch and start setting up your ads on day one when you launch, well, your ads aren't going to work. And so you're going to start wasting time, and you're not going to get traffic from social media, and your ads are going to waste money and not get you sales, and it's going to be a failed launch. We are curing all that here because we're giving us a lot of time for experimenting with ads, seeing how the ads perform, changing things, watching how the ads perform again, changing things, etc. A lot of short cycles that way. And of course, here we're going to continue to do influencer outreach. Now, next week, we're just going to relaunch improved ads, launch improved social media videos that are meant for organic traffic. And then we're going to start teasing on social media. Like, hey, we've got this interesting product coming out. Did you know that this and this and this and that? So just getting people's attention. You might have been teasing things out earlier, but now we have like a teasing schedule, because if I scroll down, you see we've got a lot of, every week we're going to do a teaser, like early bird sale or something like that. Did you know what we're launching, or something that inspires curiosity? And generally speaking, you see, I didn't create many new tasks on our calendar because the idea is that we started on our important tasks early, and now we're just iterating and refining them, like refining the ads, improving the videos, continuing to network with influencers so that on day one of the launch, our audience is ready for our release. We're going to run profitable and effective ads. Our sales pages are going to be well made and ready, and they're going to be highly converting. And we're going to have not only traffic and promotion from influencers, but we will have built up our own content on social media and traffic and audience on social media, our own, which even though if the influencers, they may not devote their life to promoting us every day. Most people don't. They have their own lives to run and businesses to run. When we have our own audiences and we make content for them all the time, we grow those audiences, engage them, and then we constantly have an audience to promote to. We don't want to promote to them daily, but certainly every once in a while as they grow and grow and grow in numbers. But you see, generally speaking, this is the rough outline. And let's say you had another initiative, like you wanted to create an affiliate program where you collect affiliates who would promote your business for a commission. This is kind of similar to influencer marketing. Well, you could just pencil that in. It could be easy to add as long as you have enough staff to do this, enough time that you would allocate this. And so suddenly you're totally prepared. And again, by the time you launch, you'll have a bunch of affiliates ready to promote your business. And whenever they make a sale, they get a commission. So they're highly incentivized to make sales. Like influencers get paid upfront, but affiliate marketers get paid on commission generally. So they're very, very motivated to keep promoting you. So you can swap strategies in and out depending on what your business is, what your ultimate strategy might be. But this kind of a calendar is what you should create for your business, more detailed and more clear, and with clearly assigned tasks to every individual and clearly assigned sub-deadlines for every individual so that everybody knows what to do, when, how long it should take them, boom, 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 boom. Your team is going to be like a well-oiled machine, and by the time you get to the launch, there's no guarantee naturally that you'll succeed, but you'll have profoundly higher chance of having an amazing launch than if you didn't do this. And that's the value of a go-to-market strategy and a go-to-market calendar. With this video, let's begin a new section of the course in which we're going to cover common marketing strategies for common businesses, because many of the marketing strategies repeat. It's what's these are so-called patterns. Like in engineering, if you were to build a table or a desk or a chair, you wouldn't reinvent the wheel from scratch. You would look at how are these things usually done. Of course, every chair and table are different, every car is different, every spaceship is different, but there are certain similar principles. Same in marketing. And that's why we're going to look at what are these principles for different companies, so that again, you don't have to start from scratch. You can have the working common principles that you know are proven. For example, what we're going to cover is different kinds of businesses and what are the common marketing strategies. Of course, you have to think, do these all apply to my case? Which do apply, which don't apply? And then suddenly you'll have the nucleus of your marketing strategy, hopefully without many errors. So that will be super helpful for your marketing strategy when you write that in your go-to-market plan. Now, with one caveat, of course, we're going to cover different businesses. You have one specific business. Some strategies won't be applicable to your case. Like if you have an e-commerce business, but I'm going to talk about B2B or something else, well, it doesn't make sense. But I urge you to actually go through the videos, because the more of these you see, the more of the patterns you'll be able to recognize, so that if you have specific unique elements of your business, you'll know how to apply elements from other business to them. But it will also just help you, the more you listen to this and the more you absorb, it will help you think on your feet and strategize better in a more and more sophisticated way. So now that you know what's coming up in the course, let's begin. I created an infographic for you to help you think through how to choose the best marketing strategies specifically for your business. I'll walk you through this infographic now. And we'll start with, is your business something people search for? If it's a yes, let's explore that option first, because that tends to make it a first priority that it's search, meaning getting your business discovered by clients when they search on Google. But not just yet. You have to ask yourself the next question. Is the SEO in your niche, in your marketing environment, is it competitive? And you might think, I don't know. Well, one way to think about it is you can just ballpark and guess. If you're selling something very common, then of course it's going to be competitive. But if you're in a niche that's not competitive, it's not going to be too competitive. And of course, there are going to be ways for us to explore this in this course, so you'll have a better idea. But you can also quite successfully ballpark it, because some niches are just so competitive that it's clear, and some niches are so small that it's also clear that it's not competitive. So right now, if you feel like your niche is not too competitive, you want to make SEO a high priority, because your business is something people search for and it won't be that competitive to rank in Google. Great. But if your business is competitive, you start to think, okay, maybe I'm not going to do SEO on Google, but maybe I'm going to do SEO on marketplaces like Amazon, Etsy, iTunes, App Store, wherever people search for the kind of offering that you have. It could be freelancing services, but when people discover you through search and through taking the steps to find you, to look for solutions. If you cannot find or cannot think of a great marketplace where you can leverage the discoverability that happens on that marketplace, then you look into other strategies, which is what we're going to do here on that other branch of the initial question that we have. But if it seems like there is room for you to sell on the secondary marketplaces like Amazon, Etsy, not just through Google search, then I would strongly suggest prioritizing that, because dominating your niche in those marketplaces can be extremely lucrative. Now we're going to go to the no part of the question of, is your business something people search for? You start thinking like, is your business unique or original? If yes, you need to get publicity and influencer marketing to put you in front of big audiences. And if you can get their interest with your uniqueness or originality or something else that's interesting about your business, that's a great strategy for you. But if you get in front of those people and they're like, it's not ready yet, I'm not that interested, then this isn't an ideal strategy for you. So then you explore the option of no in this case. And then the question becomes, are you selling to consumers or businesses? Because if you're selling to businesses, you may just need to do business to business sales outreach, you reaching out, calling or emailing your clients. But if you sell to consumers, you may want to consider doing personal branding so that you establish that personal brand for yourself, you grow your own large social media channels. With this strategy, you also eventually build up your email list and then ultimately sell to clients. Now, this is rough, high-level mind map that you can create for yourself to see and test, well, what is going to work from my unique situation? And this is just the beginning for us. I made this especially so that you can start thinking. And in the next videos, I'm going to go over very common types of businesses like e-commerce, personal branded business, and others, and dive a little bit deeper into the overall marketing plan for your business so that you'll see, oh, okay, this is what I should do. This works best. And it might also help you recognize what doesn't work that you thought was going to work. So with that, let's begin to start looking at slightly more detailed marketing strategies for different kinds of businesses. With this video, we're going to start a series of videos with the most effective marketing strategies for different, very common companies. The first one is going to be e-commerce marketing. If your business is not e-commerce marketing, you can skip this video until you get to the video that focuses on your type of business. Or if you are curious about how to promote e-commerce products, this is worth watching. So let's begin taking a look at what are the most effective marketing strategies for e-commerce. Most people, when they start out in this business, they think they're going to promote on Instagram, social media, etc., etc. But think about how people look for products. Let's say I'm shopping for socks. I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to search for socks, or I'm going to go to Amazon and I'm going to search for socks. So Google SEO is a big part of this. Granted, it's very competitive, but at the end of the day, a lot of people, when they are shopping, they search. So you have to be discoverable by your clients through search. And of course, search is not only for Google SEO. Search also happens on Amazon, Etsy, and eBay. Those are gigantic stores where you should attempt to sell. Of course, those stores have their own problems. They take a certain percentage from your sale. They have other requirements, and so on and so on. They have challenges, but also they have tremendous benefits, like millions and millions and millions of shoppers who are there already. Also, you should experiment with search-based ads on Google. There are certain kinds of ad for products that Google has. It's a shopping ad. And the reason I recommend that is specifically because when people are searching, they already want that product. So search is really important for us, and we have to hit it from all angles. So Google SEO is free, and the search-based ads are paid ads. Also, you want to do retargeting ads. People who come to your site, you want to bring them back to your site, and you would run retargeting ads on Google and Facebook. Retargeting ads are those ads that if you go on some website like Amazon, and then for some reason then you're on Facebook and you see that ad for the product that you saw on Amazon is shown to you on Facebook, well, that's retargeting that they're doing to you. And a small business can set up that as well. And those are good for bringing warm leads back to your site. When people come to your site the first time, they're kind of a cold lead and they don't necessarily buy from the first time. That's why it's really important to bring them back. And that's the role of the retargeting ads. In addition to that, you want to do social media, but not for exact direct selling, which is what most people think. Social media is fantastic for providing support and engagement and retention. So if somebody discovered you but didn't buy from you, you can keep reminding them about you on social media. It's really hard to sell on social media directly unless you have a highly visual, highly catchy, amazing product. For most e-commerce situations, social media is just not that effective at sales. The search-based strategies work much better despite the common confusion. And of course, it must be said that product quality, which is going to get you good reviews and recommendations, is extremely important. If people love your product, they're going to leave good reviews. They're going to show it to their friends. If they hate your product, they're going to leave bad reviews, and you're just not going to grow. So quality is extremely important. Now, what happens if a product is new or doesn't have a lot of demand? Like socks, example that I used, okay, it has a lot of demand, and so people search. What if search is not available? Because there's no demand. People either don't know your product exists if it's new, or there's too little search. Well, you can educate people by getting publicity. You can go on podcasts, different blogs, contact bloggers, contact influencers, get publicity. Just be very careful of overspending, because a lot of influencers will take your money up front. They'll tell you they're great, but they're not going to be that great in the end. And usually you don't make a lot of money with this strategy. So be very careful with that. It's an easy way to lose money. You should also still do retargeting ads on Google and Facebook. Notice the thing that's missing is the search-based ad, because there's just not a lot of people searching. And you want to get into online communities that you think are a great match for your product. So if your product is new, but they just don't know that it exists, you want to get into the Facebook groups they use, the LinkedIn groups they use, advertise maybe around the YouTube videos they watch. Wherever your target market hangs out online, you have to get there somehow, depending on what they do online and who they are, and make sure that the people in those groups and communities become aware of your product. So that's how you'd approach the situation if you have a new product or product with no demand. But if you have a standard product, then it's a lot of search-based strategies. In this video, let's cover the marketing for another very, very common and popular business today. It's either freelancing or agency marketing, which is essentially the same thing, just providing services like SEO services, design services, web development services, all kinds of services like that. So let's get into this business. This is so popular that about maybe 15 or 20% of all my clients and all my students in my courses have exactly this business. And my preference for this is to do SEO so clients find me. My students always ask about outreach strategies for how to sell to potential clients. And then there is whole consideration of like SEO versus local SEO. So let's talk about this. For this business, of course, there's SEO. People who want your services, they should be able to find you. And of course, there's a local component to your SEO. So let's say you're an agency in London or something. Well, people who are searching for like a marketing agency in London or near me or something like that, you will have an easier time ranking for local search because you're not competing against the rest of the world. You're only competing against people in your local area. So both SEO and local SEO is an option for this, even though global SEO will be very, very competitive. And of course, SEO on platforms like Fiverr.com, Upwork.com, those are freelancing sites where you can get a lot of leads. And those leads, you can turn them into clients for your business long term. In fact, this is something I do. And also the kinds of ads you can run are Facebook and Google retargeting ads and search-based ads on Google. Search-based ads may be a little expensive because it's a competitive niche, but certainly try retargeting ads because you're getting warm leads back. And of course, this kind of a business benefits greatly from personal branding, authority building, or industry thought leadership. For example, a lot of my clients, they tell me that they bought my services only after maybe they saw my YouTube videos or they maybe took my Udemy courses or read my books. So it's not like they don't know about me from before. They already have had some sort of a contact with me because of the content I've created online, like on YouTube, on Udemy, and many other places. So this is a very important thing to do. And you want to network professionally so you can build up a professional referral network for your niche. And it's important to have a niche, to have a differentiation. Of course, there's an impulse to be SEO for all companies, design for all companies. But if you have a niche specialization, you can still accept all companies as clients, but there's one niche in which you're going to be much more likely to get clients. And of course, you choose the niche by what's your background? Where are you strongest? Now let's keep moving forward. Of course, also for a service business, it's really important to have quality and long-term customer retention, which obviously only comes with quality. The reason for long-term quality and retention is so that if you do sell maybe SEO services, well, the same client might need social media marketing services. The same client might need services to help them run ads, other services for their website design, and so on and so on. So you can make a lot of money from one client if you retain them. And like I mentioned, you have to have compelling differentiation to stand out because this is a commoditized area for businesses. There's so much competition. There's so many agencies and freelancers essentially offering the same service that if you can find some compelling differentiation, like maybe you have a lot of experience, maybe you have expertise in design, maybe you service only some type of companies like dentists, for example, or something unique so that you can stand out, that would help a lot, especially in this space. Also, about social media and email marketing, that's where you want to share your content and re-engage potential clients and kind of wake clients up. Maybe they wanted to hire you, but they forgot. So you want to be on the forefront of their mind. And of course, you use that for support and customer care. But generally, it's not easy to sell freelancing or agency services from social media. On email, you may if you continuously re-engage people. And of course, there's another strategy I alluded to earlier in this video, and that is you reaching out to potential clients. You would do that through email outreach and LinkedIn outreach. The reason I don't love this so much is that it's a little bit spam. I get these emails all the time on LinkedIn, on email. I get maybe 20 or 30 per week, and I have to delete them all because I'm not even looking to hire these companies at the moment. And so to me, it's like spam. They just fill up my inbox. And I think for many other people, it's spam as well. This is a brute force strategy, so it can be effective. But at the same time, I prefer to do those SEO-based finesse type strategies And then once they're in place, sure, do the outreach through email and LinkedIn. That's relatively standard for this business. But it's not something I do just because I don't want to spam people. In this video, let's talk about the marketing strategies for either like an influencer business where you want to become an influencer, or a coaching business where it's one of those businesses that you have to create so much content so people discover you through that content where you can build authority. So even though it's not exactly the same thing, it's very related. So I'm putting them in one video. And this business obviously is highly predicated on constantly creating amazing content. What kind of content is up to you. It can be a blog, it can be YouTube, it can be a podcast, it can be photos, it can be something else. You have to create it constantly, and it has to be amazing, best-in-class content. If you're best in class, people are going to follow, subscribe, etc., and share, of course. If you don't create best-in-class content, then people are just not going to engage with it as much, not going to follow, and this business is not going to grow. You're not going to get the authority. So the quality is monumentally important. And a lot of this business, even though it feels like it's about creating content, a huge part of it is actually about learning how to make better and better content and then creating good content. Those are the two areas of very strong focus. And the reason content is so important is because you get discovered precisely through that content. People either share it on social media, or they also can discover that content through search, like blog posts or YouTube videos, even podcasts. People search iTunes and they find the best podcasts. So search is actually really important for discovery here, but retention is equally important because you got to get people not to just consume your content once, but regularly. So they want to subscribe and they open every new piece of content you have and engage. Of course, email is also important here. This is how you have long-term retention and keep on reminding people about you. And once you have an audience and it all grows, you want to cross-pollinate your audience across all the social networks, Twitter, Facebook, etc., Instagram, YouTube. And notice that once you have this engaged audience, you can actually sell anything to them, coaching services, but also products if you sell products in e-commerce, services if you have a freelancing business. So becoming an influencer, gaining authority and recognition in your niche is actually something that's going to help you with almost all the other businesses. The challenge, of course, is that you're kind of giving yourself a job, almost like a full-time job or a big part-time job of creating content. And not everybody's great at creating content. Not everybody likes it. It can be kind of boring. A lot of people try to outsource the creation of the content, but it's just too expensive. And at the end of the day, most likely on social media, you're the one who has to be the face of the content anyway, and it has to be your expertise. So this is fantastic for a lot of people, but it's also a double-edged sword because it's so time-consuming, so resource-intensive. So don't jump into this lightly. Only get into this if you're going to be able to create content long-term. If people see you created content but kind of quit or slow down, that's going to be actually a negative sign, like, oh, they're going to be like, this business is dead. So it's something you're going to have to constantly keep going once you start. In this video, let's look at the marketing strategies for a local business. If you're not clear what's a local business, it's any business that does business in a local radius. If it's a liquor store, it could be the local 5-block radius. And if it's a construction company, the construction company can probably travel out to around 20-mile radius or so. That's typically reasonable. And it can be any business like gym, store, any kind of physical locations, even events at times. Those are all local businesses. Even doctor's office or restaurants or any kind of therapy offices, that's all local businesses. And the thing that unites these businesses is that they are proven, much needed services so that when people need them, they search for them. So people seek them out. And you might think, okay, Google search. Sure, that's the first step in our strategy, but really it's local search because Google makes a distinction between general search for maybe global items like shoes or clothing or something you can get from anywhere versus local search. And in addition to local search, I added local ads in there too. Let me actually show you an example of a local search so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Here's an example of a search that I made. I searched for a therapist near me. Because I live in New York, it can be also therapist in NYC. And approximately the same things will come up. And think of this as a template. Look, there are 4 types of things in this template. The first ones are, these are local ads. So these you have to pay for to get into these. You can see because there's a little ad right here. Then there's the Google Map. This is called the Google 3-pack. Notice there's also an ad here that can appear sometimes. So it's even though it's 3 free organic results here, there's also one ad. That's something you can also add yourself in by going to google.com/business and filling out a form. You don't have to disclose your physical address. You can keep that private. There's a setting in there. Obviously, you have to tell Google where you are, but it doesn't have to be listed online like this. But as you can see in all local searches, this map appears, and this map takes a lot of room on the result, and it comes up before all the websites. So this is a really important thing because a lot of people think local search is about my website. But look, the map, also called the 3-pack, it comes up before your site. So make sure you add yourself here so you can get discovered by people searching locally. After that, what you're going to have are directories. Because I search for therapists, I'm going to get therapist directories. So Psychology Today is a therapist directory. If I search for another kind of a service, I might get other directories like Yelp or yellowpages.com. Here I have ZocDoc. So every field has their own few directories. Usually Yelp is one of them. If I keep going to the second page, likely Yelp is going to come up. You see right here. There's two listings of Yelp. Usually Yelp is on the first page. It just depends on the kind of search. Now, if I go back a little bit, what you'll see is that below the directories, there's other websites, and then you'll see something like this, My Therapy NYC. This is an individual practitioner, like a small business owner, perhaps like yourself. And you see, it's actually really hard to rank the website in the Google Top 10. Only one like that shows up among all the ads, directories, the Google Maps. So actually, the SEO for your site is actually the hardest, and the easiest is through the map. This is free. And if you don't mind paying for ads, then the ads also work on day one. But depending on where you are and how competitive your niche is, it might be expensive. And to sum up, there are 4 types of things: the ads, the map, the directories, and small business owner sites. That's what I mean by local SEO, not any one of those things. And it's not enough to just put yourself on the map or on Yelp. You have to make sure you keep getting reviews, keep doing the work to rank higher and higher. That's local SEO. So like I mentioned, in addition to local SEO, you got to put your business on local directories like Yelp and whichever local directories target your niche. Now, also people ask, well, what about social media and email marketing for this? It's really useful for client retention, reminding people about your business, and doing customer support, but it's much more rare than the hype would suggest. A lot of hype around this suggests, oh, you can make a lot of sales on Instagram, Facebook, and this, but really it's not that easy. A lot of social media is for client retention and support, and to run something like Facebook ads, you have to become really good at Facebook ads. It's not that easy. Also, for a local business, you can do business networking at events and building up your referral network, your professional referral network, and of course, the quality of your service or your product will give you customer retention so they can buy from you long term. And of course, it's very important for a local business to set up your shop in a high foot traffic area. And with quality, in addition to a professional referral network, will come your customer referral network where customers begin to recommend you, but that is only after a lot of quality. So these are the most important marketing strategies for a local business. In this video, let's focus on what I call platform marketing. This is marketing on these very big sites like Amazon, Etsy, Udemy, YouTube, Fiverr, etc. And you might think, okay, these are so different. One is e-commerce, another one is videos. Well, yes, they're different, but they're algorithmically driven, and you just have to understand how to manipulate the algorithm to your favor. So on all these sites, there is on-platform SEO, meaning you have to outrank your competitors for your important keywords. And another thing kicks in, the recommendation algorithm. I'm sure you've seen on Amazon many times. People who like this book also like this book. People who like this product also like this product. And you start getting recommended by those platforms after you get good engagement. And whereas search has a limit, you're not going to get more visibility than there are people searching. If their platform collects good signals about user engagement with your content or products, they're going to start recommending you more and more. And it's going to seem like there's nearly no limit because these sites are so gigantic and the recommendation algorithm is the way to tap into the vastness of those platforms. And many people, when they start on these sites, they think like, oh, should I promote on social media? I don't have an audience. That's not a problem, because that's not a first priority. The first priority is to do the on-platform SEO and make sure you have a good listing so that at least it has a chance to start ranking. What you also have to do is make your listing, your page, let's say it's an Amazon page, highly converting. There are two places that you have to focus on. The SERP page. SERP stands for Search Engine Result Page. That's when people are searching. That's before they even clicked on your listing. You have to make your photo and your thumbnail and your description that much more attractive so that they click on your listing among all the competitors. And then once they get to your sales page, you have to make the sales page highly converting and attractive, with good images, with good titles, and so on, so that people convert at a higher rate. And because these platforms typically collect a percentage of what you make, the more sales you make, the more money they make, the more they're going to recommend you. And of course, some of these have on-platform ads like YouTube ads. Amazon has ads. A lot of them don't have ads, but usually the on-platform ads are quite effective, more effective than if you use the secondary site like Facebook to drive ads. Just because as long as the ad is on that native same platform where your users are already used to that platform, those ads typically do better. And after that is all done, then you can use social media to boost activity, because more and more activity, the more you can boost it, the more those algorithms are programmed to react well to that and promote you more because of that increased activity. So you see, social media, yes, there's a place for it, but it's a lot later. First, you have to focus on the on-platform marketing. That's the way to succeed on those. In this video, let's talk about a marketing plan for a company that is an innovative startup type of company. It hasn't been done before. Like maybe you're doing like a new Uber or a new something. The issue with that is it's not a proven type of company. It's innovative. So there isn't a set of existing marketing strategies. And we'll talk about how to tackle that. But the first thing you've got to do, because it's innovative, it's interesting, so you can take advantage of the newness of this idea and get publicity. You can get publicity by pitching journalists and influencers. Just make sure that you understand that I'm talking about free publicity, precisely because your idea is new and compelling. You can get free publicity. If it wasn't unique, you would have to pay influencers, which you really can do, but very sparingly, because often they're overrated. So you can hire some influencers during launch just to boost your launch, but be very careful, because a lot of times they say they're good, but they get you a lot less traffic than you thought they would get you, and it ends up being a loss of money. So just be careful in how you vet them and research which ones are good for you. But they can help you have a slightly bigger launch. And during the building of your product, make sure that you're actually establishing relationships with influencers, with journalists, so that when your product is a couple of weeks away from getting launched, you can reach out to all of them and say, hey, by the way, we're launching this product. It's on this date. And because you have a little bit of a relationship, nothing crazy like a relationship, just be tweeting at them, be commenting on their posts, just make sure they're aware of you so that they like you by then. It's a little bit of a warmer connection than if on day one when you launch, if you ask them, hey, can you promote me? Of course, they're going to say no because they don't know you. But if they already have some affinity towards you, they'll be much more likely to do so. And of course, you can also do a press release on prweb.com. And you want to also ask and align all your business contacts and friends to just share during your launch date so that you can have as big of a launch as possible. And hopefully, of course, you're going to be able to get publicity long term because of the newness of your business. Now, that's launch and that's publicity, but how do you find additional long-term marketing strategies that work for you when you're in a new situation? Like, it's not a proven business, it's innovative, so we don't really know what's going to work yet. So unlike the proven common types of businesses like local businesses or service businesses, the marketing strategies for those are known. In your case, it's still mostly unknown. It needs to be discovered. So, of course, there are two things. Before you launch, you must have some sense of a marketing plan that might work. Not a random plan, but carefully thought out plan of strategies that you think will fit your situation and will work.
And also after you launch, of course, all your strategies will be theoretical. You'll have to experiment long-term to find what truly is going to work. This is the bad side of having an innovative situation, because you are the one who has to figure out what's going to work. So during the planning, the questions you have to ask yourself is, can you align your business to get discovered in SEO? Is it shareable on social media? If not, how can you adjust little details about your business so that suddenly, oh, this is something people do kind of search for, or it's suddenly a little more funny or a little more shareable, so that it takes advantage of social media and SEO, and maybe it can stand out in both a little more. And that's something you can do during planning. The planning wouldn't be perfect because it's all theoretical, but at least it would give you a higher chance to succeed in this. And the big problem to avoid is don't get into a business that's unpromotable. Sometimes businesses launch and then they have this rude awakening. The SEO for my space is too competitive. The social media is too crowded. The ads are not profitable. The influencers are too expensive and ineffective. And then suddenly they run out of ideas and they have a business, maybe a good product, no way to promote it. So that's what you really want to be careful of during the planning of an innovative company. And don't start programming, don't hire developers until you have a reasonably good sense for how you will promote and whether it will actually work. So ideally, you'd have marketing expertise on your team. If you don't, consult with multiple marketing experts, because a lot of them are not as good as they say. So if you get multiple opinions, kind of like going to a doctor and getting multiple doctor opinions, that will give you a greatest chance to actually have a solid marketing plan before you launch. In this video, let's talk about a marketing plan for a B2B company. This can be selling directly to companies. This can be selling to universities. This can be even trying to sell to military. But of course, selling to military is very, very difficult and it's its own animal. But this is going to be on general B2B marketing. And generally, because you're selling B2B, you typically have larger average sales, meaning you can invest more in your marketing, meaning your outreach, the direct outreach, can be stronger. It's not just spam and blast out a lot of people. It's more relationship building, and you can invest more time. You can get on more calls and couple that with better customer support, precisely because there's fewer potential customers who are more valuable. So you give them more attention. It's kind of like the agency marketing, but if the agency is targeting relatively small businesses, relatively low paying clients, it doesn't pay that much to invest in every client sale. But in traditional B2B sales, you can get 5x, 10x, 20x more revenue per client if they're bigger clients. So you just invest much more time and effort and care into your sales. Also, because usually B2B sales are in some industry and some niche, you would want to build awareness by getting publicity in that niche. So when you do a cold introduction, when you do the outreach, or when your salespeople do the outreach, the company on the other end, their representatives, they're not going to be like, we don't even know who you are. If you did a little bit publicity, if you get a little bit known in your niche and industry, then they'll be like, oh yeah, of course, we've seen your video, or we read about you in this magazine, or we've seen your work elsewhere before, you do great work. And so of course it's going to be a warm initial conversation instead of you having to explain, well, here's what we do. So if you get publicity, they'll already know about you when you contact them, and it's going to help your sales process along. Also, surprisingly, even though people don't think that SEO and traditional platform marketing like YouTube or Amazon works, well, actually, sometimes it's not just all about you reaching out to clients. Sometimes the clients, they still do some research on their end. And how do you think they're going to do research? They're going to search around, and sometimes they're going to search Google, but sometimes, let's say you sell a product to companies, a physical product. Well, if you put it on Amazon, sometimes the Amazon listing comes up in Google search. Sometimes they go straight to Amazon if it's for a product. So it's not uncommon that they actually will find you by researching. So being on sites like Amazon or wherever makes sense for the kind of thing you're selling can help potential clients find you, and actually makes your sales process much cheaper because they found you and they already want what you're offering. That's a fantastic and automated way for how to sell. In fact, that's actually what I do. I have a B2B product that I offer. I sell content licensing to companies. And I don't go out and make sales because I don't have a sales staff, but I made sure that when people do the research, when they search, they find me. And it's a good addition to my main business without taking a lot of extra time. Also, because you're going to be probably selling in a niche, just like you want to get publicity from other sources, you can and maybe should invest, or at least consider investing in building up your own influencership or authority building inside your niche. Because if you are the most authoritative source in your niche, then of course, when people need the kind of product or service you offer, they won't even have to research. You'll be at the forefront of their mind. They'll associate you with whatever they need, and they might just go to you directly because you've built up that's branding for you that you control, because you're building up your own influencership with content creation and so on and so on. So those are the main strategies for a B2B situation. Of course, B2B can be very, very different from one to another, but these are general strategies that tend to work best. Many people kind of get tired of their 9-to-5 jobs, and they know that there's this whole passive income thing online, but they don't really know how to get into it. So in this video, let's talk about this passive income, this big umbrella of strategies and the marketing for them. And this is so many different businesses, from books to e-commerce to services to agencies to affiliate. Well, actually, guess what? We actually covered already in the previous videos a lot of them, right? Influencer marketing, freelancing, agency, e-commerce, promoting yourself on platforms like YouTube and so on and so on. How to become an influencer. So we actually touched on a lot of these. But there's one we didn't touch: affiliate marketing. This is a big thing a lot of people ask about, and a lot of people, they make an entirely, absolutely identical mistake almost unequivocally. And I have hundreds of coaching clients on this over time, and I have a very popular affiliate marketing course, and almost unequivocally people make the same mistake when they start. It's that they get some product, and it's not difficult to get a product, because every company out there, of course, they'd like you to try to resell their product so you can help them get sales. Of course, the main challenge is not getting products to sell. The main challenge is promotion. So what do beginner entrepreneurs do in this space? They get their product, they get a link to the product, they're ready to promote, but they don't know how to promote. So they experiment with some ads, they post on social media, they get a couple of sales or no sales, and essentially they quit and lose some money with that by running ads. Then they're stuck. So what really has to happen? First, of course, you must choose a niche, find a way to provide some value in that niche, maybe by creating content, maybe something else. Then you would do the SEO and social media marketing, and only then you would pick a product specifically knowing what your audience would like to buy or need to buy. Then it would be natural for them to buy whatever the affiliate product is. But you see, there's this myth that passive income is going to be immediately passive, but there's a tremendous amount of work to build up the SEO, to do your social media, to become an influencer perhaps, so that you can then sell. So it may be automated, but it's actually a lot of hard work before a large part of the automation kicks in, and before you really figure out how to perfect this business. And maybe long-term you can run profitable ads, maybe long-term you can do the SEO, but it's not as easy as a lot of people would make it out to seem. So in this video, I just wanted to note that, because I know affiliate marketing is something a lot of people ask about, and also to point out that a lot of the other passive income strategies, actually, we already covered. So we've actually covered quite a bit. In this video, I want to sum up what we covered in this section, which was trying to apply correct marketing patterns to existing types of businesses. So in this video, let's recap the most common ones, so that when you are faced with a certain business situation, a certain business idea, or a certain task to create a marketing plan for a certain business we covered, or maybe a business we didn't cover, or maybe a business that we covered, but maybe that has some unique quirks to it. Maybe it's an innovative type of business. Maybe it's not an innovative approach. Maybe it's something else. Then at least you'll know now how to think through it, rather than robotically placing marketing strategies onto business ideas. You'll be able to be more flexible in your thinking about it. So always try to kind of think back. You have an idea. Can you get publicity for it? If it's unique, you can get publicity. If it's something people look for, it may be SEO based. If it's SEO based, maybe it can be promoted also not just on Google search, but on large platforms when people search, like Amazon's and Etsy's and eBay's and all those other kinds of big sites for whatever niche you might have. Then can you run ads? For some companies, it's possible. For some, it's not possible. So that's another question you ask. Do B2B sales apply? Can you do the outreach? And does support and customer retention, do they play a role in the kind of business you have? Will branding and social media be really helpful, or will that be a distraction? And if it's something local, then there's a whole set of local marketing strategies like local search, local directories, etc., even flyers and business card and networking. Do those apply? So now that you have these big, I guess we'll call them buckets, you can place or remove them onto any business idea for which they may or may not make sense. And the purpose of this section was to help you be able to more freely think about, okay, so here are my buckets, here are my options, that these are the main marketing options. When do they apply? When can I add or remove them? And the idea of this is to empower you in your thinking and planning for marketing for your unique and specific situation, no matter how unique and specific it might be.
Now let's talk about the 3 different initial types of launches that you may choose to have. So the first launch isn't really the big launch at all. In most types of businesses, you can do a soft launch. Sometimes they call this the alpha launch. The name hardly matters. What matters is what it is. It's the launch that's quiet, without any fanfare, without major announcements. You just put the product into the market. Maybe you upload an Amazon product. Maybe you make a YouTube video. If YouTube videos are if you're working on a YouTube channel, maybe you just launch a product on your website or service, and you don't really promote it widely. You promote it only to a select audience that you hand select. And that audience is just there. They're like friends and family kind of, and professional contacts. They just come, they use your product, and they know they're there to give feedback. The product isn't done. It's not ready. The product isn't ready for the mass audience. It's just ready for that initial audience. And that initial audience, their main job is to just give you feedback. And of course, not in only the verbal way, but you'll monitor their analytics to see what they press, how they navigate your product. Sometimes you can even watch them do it if they're in person there with you, which is super, super helpful, because often they use your product in a way that you didn't think is the most apparent. It's very surprising how people would use your product, because usually you conceptualize it one way and then people just do random things on it, and that will give you a lot of insight. And then you go through a number of such iterations. They give you feedback, you quickly go to your product team, fix any problems or confusion that your initial group found, and you relaunch softly so that you can give it to a slightly wider audience. And the way this actually plays out is, let's say you launch a mobile app. I remember 10 plus years ago when I launched my first mobile app, I was actually surprised that even though I didn't tell anybody, there were some people, like from the internet, I didn't know them, they were getting my app. And I didn't do any marketing, I didn't do any optimization of SEO on it, anything. And then I was like, oh, real people, 1 or 2. Now, some people, they don't know that you're just doing a soft launch if they randomly find your product on the internet. They may see this product, which is not very good, because naturally that's too early, just for feedback, and they might not know that, and so they might say, this is horrible, 1-star rating. And if enough people do that, you'll get 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. Don't worry about it, because you can always take that down, whether it's a book, unpublish it, app, unpublish it, and just relaunch a new one. You can do that just about anywhere, on any platform. Nobody will know, because you literally almost told nobody. So that's not a problem. And then what you're going to do is work up to your real launch. Now the real launch is going to be the launch towards which you're accumulating influencers who might promote you that day, friends and family who might promote you that day, any business contacts who may promote you that day, ads you might start running that day, etc. That burst that you're working up to, that's what you're working towards from your alpha or soft launch. And like I said, like if you're launching a restaurant, It's nearly impossible to have a soft launch, but with many other kinds of businesses, it's quite possible. And in fact, quite recommended, because you don't want this big launch on day one and then people find so many bugs and customers use it in all kinds of different ways you didn't foresee because you didn't go through that process of the soft launch. And then all that effort that you put into the build up towards your launch, it's going to fall flat on its face, because if people don't like what they get on your big launch day, then there's no point in promoting, because they're just going to not come back to your product. They're not going to become regular customers. They're going to leave you bad reviews. So you've got to do that soft launch process. Now, so that's really the second launch, right? The main launch is the second launch. Now we want to talk about the third type of launch, the grand launch. This is something you can do if you have a unique or innovative product. It's not available for all types of businesses, although you can try, no matter what your business might be. And the third type of launch is launching at large events. So in the startup world, there are big industry events like you might have heard of TechCrunch or other similar events. This is where you promote your product on stage, and major investors are in the audience, major startup entrepreneurs are in the audience. There's a lot of potential users in the audience, and not only in that large audience at a big event, but also all kinds of journalists are at that event, and then they go and they publish whatever was at the event on their big publications like TechCrunch, all the major tech or whatever your industry is, whatever that industry's publications. And so you get exposure to tens of thousands of people at your launch just from that event. You should still do your other marketing strategies, but that event itself will give you exposure to everybody who you want to get in front of, investors, journalists, etc., etc. And so that's something extremely coveted. Obviously, everybody would love to do that for their launch, and for that reason, not everybody can do that. And so if that's something that you think you might be able to do, go to TechCrunch.com, go to, I think it's called TechCrunch 50 or TechCrunch Launch. They keep rebranding this. And there are similar events like Jason Calacanis, who's a major investor and kind of a startup champion. He also puts on a similar event. He also keeps rebranding it. I don't know what the name is anymore. It's gone through like a number of name changes, but it's the same sort of thing. Big event where startups launch on stage, and you can find those kinds. They're not hard to find because they're startup launch events and conferences. And then you can look at the companies who launched last year and then see, is mine like that? How can I position mine like that? How can I be a little more innovative? How can I position my company so that it's in a market that's really popular with investors today? How can I grab their attention more so that you can have a chance to get chosen? And then, of course, if you feel like you might get chosen for that kind of thing, if you might be good enough, then you want to apply, and then, of course, they might accept you. And if you're one of the lucky ones who get accepted, all these investors, they're not there for fun. They're there to invest. So you might, after you present, you might actually meet some investors, talk to them, etc., etc. So it might actually have many, many further positive effects on your business long term. It's rarely available, but it's incredible if you can pull that off. Now let's talk about additional types of launches. One very popular type of launch is if you've already been live with your product and you've already launched, you can always do relaunch. Like sometimes you see this with Taylor Swift. She redoes her songs and relaunches her songs. What does that do? Let's say she wrote a song when she was like 19. Now she, I think, is 30 or something, or whatever her age is, 30 plus. And the new song, which is an update from a song when she was 19, that not only gets publicity for the new song, that actually gets new audiences towards the old song. So she's making two versions of her song popular at the same time. It's not her main objective, obviously. I think she just naturally, genuinely wants to improve her music because she's grown so much as an artist. But certainly it has the side effect of, with one product, with one relaunch, you're actually promoting two things. So that's a great benefit. But also, it's something else that you can get attention to, because when you have a launch or a relaunch, well, you can get publicity, all sorts of attention. So if you want to have a reason to do big publicity, big influencer campaign, etc., and have something that's attention grabbing, like launching, relaunching, then of course you can relaunch. And you can relaunch with most feature updates. When you update your product, you can position them as major product updates, major product releases, kind of relaunches. You can position that any way you like, but those are food for constant launch and relaunch and relaunch and relaunch forever. So you can do that all the time. Now I want to give you an example of how major brands and major influencers launch videos on YouTube, and you can use this example for your own situation. So let's say you're a gigantic YouTuber and you have a new video coming out. You've probably invested a lot of money in production, and you're going to run some ads probably, and you're going to do all sorts of things. You probably have a team that you paid. You're spending a lot of money, and it's really, really important for you. Like, it's not just a part-time job, it's your full-time job, and it's your future. It's incredibly high stakes for you to have every video launch as amazing as possible. Like, if you and I launch a video, we're like, okay, it got some views. We don't lose sleep over it that much. But if you're one of those people, that's the most important thing in your work, is your next video. Super important. I just want to give you the context of how important it is for them. So what they do is they don't just launch. They have a burner channel, like some channel that most people don't know. And then they launch first on that channel. Whatever video they have, they launch it on that channel. They test like 5 different thumbnails to see what might get better click-through rate. They run some ads. They see what's more popular. Then they test titles, saying this is kind of A/B testing. So they basically launch 5 different, same video with like different titles, run some ads with it, do some experiments, and then they find what's working best. And only then they take that video and they launch it on their main channel. You see, so we have no idea that this is happening. Like, if you pick your favorite gigantic YouTuber, you wouldn't think that they do that. It looks like the first video every video they publish is the video that they publish. But you can bet that most of them have these burner test channels where they test, and only when they have experiments that are working, they launch it to their main channel, because their main channel is their entire future and their livelihood. And that means you should do the same thing. You can have, this is similar to the soft launches, and so in your soft launches, you would test everything. But even once you have a live product, you should still test the updates, test your sales, copywriting, all that. Taking the example of these popular YouTubers, which is a really great example because YouTube is so flexible that it allows them to do that. Not every business has that flexibility, but the flexibility that you do have, use it to do that process as well, if growth of your business is important, if this is high stakes for you, because that's how they squeeze out the extra 1 to 2 extra percent that gets higher click-through, higher engagement, and beat out their competitors. And that's actually how they grow super big. And when they get to very large volume, the incremental changes they might make, higher click-through rate, but from a big number, is actually a big significant difference. And even further, as they beat out their competitors and they become number 1 or close to number 1 in their niche on YouTube, of course, they get this flood of traffic, and hence they become big. So now we think they're big, but they became big because they do this sort of thing to beat out competition. Now I want to give you some examples of instances when you actually may not need a go-to-market strategy, and you may not need a big launch for a product. Say, for example, you have a small or mid-sized product and a small to mid-sized audience on social media, like most people or brands do. We don't have giant audiences, most of us, right? So when we launch something, we can have a little bit of lift up from social media, sure, but if you are banking on long-term longevity, the short-term launch can always be beneficial, sure, but it also takes some focus away from you. So if you devote an hour or 2 or 3, even something small, to your pre-launch, the teasing of the product, etc., well, you see, that time takes away from the time you could have been putting into product quality or something else, or maybe the SEO for your product or other marketing strategies that are long-term focus. This is actually the case for me. When I launch a course, my students don't really know about it because I don't care that much about the initial promotion for the course. So I might make like 10 or 20 or 30% more if I do a really proper launch. But what I really care about is putting my resources into the long-term features. So maybe making a better course that gets higher reviews naturally. If I put extra that 3 hours, if I put it into testing, like literally watching my course, refilming some videos, that will go a far longer way. That will make me way more money than whatever I could have made in the initial launch over the next, let's say a course is like, has a 10-year lifetime. Of course, it has to be updated, etc. But courses tend to be kind of long-term products. That's the goal for most of them, at least. And so I don't care about the first month. I sometimes don't care about the first year, because that's where you put the investment in. I care about in year 5, I want this to be difference making. So if you have a long-term vision, which many of the best entrepreneurs do, if you look at how Jeff Bezos works, he's all 5 or 10 years planning ahead. Many of similar entrepreneurs, they don't really necessarily care about the short-term results. Of course, you don't want them to be zero, you care to a degree, but you don't obsess about them. What you obsess is the long-term. Am I going to win with this long-term? Am I positioning myself for the long-term? And of course, then you devote resources to the strategies that will get you the biggest long-term effect. So you see, you don't always need a go-to-market strategy, but if you have a large brand or a decent mid-sized brand, or you have a product, maybe you have a small brand, but you have a product with high potential, or high virality factor, or high factor of potential secondary downloads or users from, if you're launching an app, a YouTube video, a product on Amazon, that secondary bursts of traffic and sales from that marketplace, wherever you're launching. Of course, you want to take the most advantage, the biggest advantage sometimes. You see, sometimes you don't, like in my case. But sometimes you do. It just depends on your overall strategy. So the go-to-market strategy, don't forget, it's a part of your overall marketing plan. That's key. Because if you overfocus on launch and you neglect your long-term longevity, you'll actually lose money. So think about how to balance it all. A reasonable launch, like you still do an email campaign, you still do little teasers, little announcements perhaps. That's a reasonable balance of the two. But you don't go too crazy on the pre-launch and the launch and the go-to-market strategy if your vision is like 10 or 5-year vision, right? They're like, two different worlds. So definitely think about it and make sure you ask yourself that question when you plan the extent to how big your go-to-market strategy and your launch will be. There's some debate about whether you should be secretive about your launch as opposed to whether you should be completely open about your launch. And there are benefits to both strategies. And in this video, I'm going to share those benefits with you and explain how you can take the biggest advantage for your situation. So, to be secretive, there are some benefits because you don't want your competitors to know what you are doing, if you have competitors, because your competitors, they're just going to steal what you're doing, only the good parts. They'll steal it as soon as you launch. That's their job. So you want to be a little, not secretive, but at least not completely clear if possible. On the other hand, let's say that you're a candy company and you're coming out with some really cool candy brand. Like, people have been complaining that your chocolate, almond candy, maybe, like almonds wrapped in chocolate, are too chocolatey, and so it's kind of too unhealthy. And so you created this like lightly chocolate coated almond, so it's like passable as not junk food anymore. It's still great tasting, but it's not junk food, and it's not, almonds are kind of good for you. So you're like, okay, we can capture an entire market with this. Not only it sounds fun because it's still chocolate coated almonds, it's fun food to eat, but it's also one of the least unhealthy junk foods, or bordering on, you can argue that there is some health benefits. Maybe you can't argue that to experts or scientists because they know better, or dietitians, but you can make that argument and convince many regular people. So you're launching this. Now, you want to tease that because that's a kind of thing that will go a little viral. People will talk about it with their family. They're like, ooh, let's say you're a month from launch and you do this little campaign putting out, saying something, hey, look at this. We're working on the healthiest possible chocolate covered almond snack. And suddenly people who want snacks but have been dieting or trying to be healthy, they're talking to their family. They're like, "Ooh, this is coming out. Did you know it's coming out in a month? I want to try it because maybe this can work for me." And so people share it on Facebook, and so this kind of a thing has viral effects. It's not something that's going to go totally viral like a funny video, but it's also not entirely not viral. So it has some sharing built in it. And then you're building this buzz, and then the next week, let's say you first mentioned it before, like a month before, so the next week, 3 weeks before, you give some kind of other teaser, another teaser, something else. Maybe you send out that candy to like super fans or super influencers. So you just, a couple of influencers who are big, of course those influencers will also promote you in the launch when you actually launch, but they'll maybe promote you 3 weeks before you launch, so that there's like a lot of activity in your industry around this. And also it goes viral too, because social content shared by influencers kind of has a way of getting also shared. And maybe you do something else, 2 weeks, the teasers. Maybe you have some funny videos come out, like a campaign with funny videos. And maybe you'll have a campaign comparing your chocolate covered almonds to the existing ones in the market and show how thick the chocolate layer is on the existing ones, which makes them unhealthy, raise more buzz, right? And so suddenly there's awareness. So the whole point of this is that there's a little excitement, and when you launch, it's not the first time that your potential consumers are hearing about this, because how do people's minds work? Different studies show that people need around 7 to 10 touch points with a brand or a new idea before they really engage. So if you launch on your launch date, that's going to fall flat on its face, because people are going to go like, this is interesting. I need time to think about if I need this. I'm busy now. I'll try it later, right? So they are interested, but they don't engage because it's the first time they're learning about you. That's why the teasing, the promotion before you launch is necessary if you want to have a great launch. You don't always need, it's not in all cases that you need a gigantic launch, but if you want a great gigantic launch, you must tease. Not tease like, ha ha ha, I'm better than you, but tease out little details. Have people share things so that people are ready for the launch date, they're ready to consume, and they're mentally and emotionally prepared to engage. Whereas if they had heard about you on the launch date, they wouldn't be mentally ready to engage.